Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about this policy coming from outgoing state's attorney Kim Foxx, who of course is the state's attorney for Cook County, which covers the area of Chicago, because this policy is so dumb, so asinine, so ridiculous that of course it is being pushed by a left-wing Soros-backed prosecutor, one of these woke I don't want to prosecute anyone for anything types, and honestly, we should all be ashamed that this is the state of our country. Now, we're going to get into this, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who signed up over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And remind you that the show is available in podcast form. Links in the description if you want to check it out that way.
Yeah, right. And Micah, Kim Foxx's office tells us they have been working on this draft policy since last fall, and it could drastically change how prosecutors charge cases that are based on traffic stops. Under this draft policy, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office would not prosecute gun, drug, or stolen property cases if they're the result of what's considered a non-public safety stop.
So like I said in the open, this is the policy being pushed for by the outgoing state's attorney, Kim Foxx, who, thank God, is leaving. However, there is a chance, because it's the city of Chicago, because this is a Democrat-run hellscape, that this will continue, this will go through, this will go forward. But I just want to point out for everybody out there in the audience that in Chicago, they've already instituted a bunch of other various stupid policies in Chicago related to bad cases that people lied about. For instance, in the city of Chicago, you have to ask for permission before you engage in a foot chase, and that of course leads to more and more people running away from the police. Now, this was based on the Adam Toledo shooting. Adam Toledo was caught on surveillance video with a 23-year-old firing a gun. That's why he was being stopped. That's why he was being pursued. He was holding the gun. He tried to ditch it and then throw his hands up really quickly, but unfortunately that draw led to him being shot by the officer in one of those bang play kind of situations, and that was used as a pretext to limit Chicago PD's ability to chase people on foot. Likewise, there's a similar policy when it comes to vehicle chases. So we end up in situations like we talked about on this channel where armed robbers are spotted by the police, but the police can't engage in a pursuit because they're in a vehicle without authorization from their supervisor, and they ultimately end up getting away and committing more and more robberies. So this will likely have similar consequences, because essentially what Kim Foxx is putting forward is that when you discover evidence of additional criminality during a traffic stop, that evidence will no longer be utilized or admissible according to her prosecutor's office. And this whole thing is a bit ridiculous because, of course, there's certain pieces of evidence in certain stops like this that she considers non-public safety related that will be admitted, but she's just picking and choosing what she's going to let go, and a lot of the things that she's going to let go are quite serious.
State's Attorney's Office would not prosecute gun, drug, or stolen property cases if they're the result of what's considered a non-public safety stop, a traffic stop for a reason that doesn't pose a safety threat to anyone, like an expired plate, registration, or broken lights. The office also wouldn't prosecute if a search during a traffic stop is based on consent without probable cause.
So I just want to point out a couple of things. First and foremost, stolen property is serious. You can argue about whether or not you like drug enforcement, but illegal firearms also quite serious, especially when you consider that Chicago goes out of their way to add these additional gun controls on their own citizens. But now all of a sudden, if you get pulled over for what they consider non-safety related stops, although they list broken lights as not a safety issue, which is kind of absurd. The reason you have lights on your vehicle is for safety, so other people can see your vehicles, and they're not going to prosecute that, even if when the officer shows up to the car, you consent to the search and they find this contraband, because God forbid we use any kind of entry point in order to intercept criminals, in order to lower the crime rate. We should just let them go and get away with everything. Stolen property, illegal guns, doesn't matter. You were stopped because you had a broken taillight, you ran a stop sign, that's a non-safety stop, therefore we're not going to prosecute you.
State's Attorney Kim Foxx saying in a statement, decades of data demonstrate that these stops do not enhance public safety. Instead, they perpetuate a cycle of mistrust and fear, especially in under-resourced communities. This draft policy is a crucial step towards rebuilding that trust.
Yeah, So I'm tired of this absolute nonsense. The idea that these stops don't produce any good safety or these prosecutions don't put any good safety is ridiculous and absurd. Just think about it in terms of what we talked about in the past of the New York City subway station. So we used to arrest people starting in the late 80s and into the 90s for jumping the turnstiles. When those people were arrested, they were ran for warrants, and 1 out of 7 times they had a felony warrant. They also were searched for contraband. And through that process, we were able to pull people out of the subways, thus not letting them get into the interior of the city, who were repeat offenders, who were likely people committing robberies in the cities and other crimes, because typically when you violate those big laws, those big rules, you're also someone likely to not care about jumping the turnstiles, while also increasing subway revenue, and again, doing a bunch of positives for the city. In fact, William Bratton's program was so successful when he was the head of the MTA police, he was actually promoted to the police commissioner under Rudy Giuliani. These traffic stops can work as a similar entry point. If you stop criminals who are being pulled over because they don't do their registration, they don't do their plate or whatever, and you find illegal guns and those criminals were on their way to go do a shooting, go do a robbery or something like that. They have stolen property as one of the things that she's not going to prosecute, which means these people are robbers, these people are thieves. Then you get them off the streets before they actually seriously victimize people. So yes, this has downstream effects, downstream consequences that are in fact positive, but unfortunately, Kimberly Foxx doesn't like this because disproportionately the people carrying drugs, the people carrying stolen property, the people carrying illegal guns in the city of Chicago are black people, are non-white people, Hispanics as well, and she thinks that means it's evil white racism. Now, in reality, the disparity is due to a disparity in behavior. It's the content of their character, not the color of their skin, but what Kimberly Foxx and all these woke scolds tend to look at is outcome, and they like to blame everyone else for the actions of the criminal. Again, she talked about underrepresented, under-resourced communities and all this other nonsense.
State's Attorney Kim Foxx saying in a statement, decades of data demonstrate that these stops do not enhance public safety. Instead, they perpetuate a cycle of mistrust and fear, especially in under-resourced communities.
But you know what doesn't help any of these supposedly under-resourced communities? Having these criminals pilfer those resources. If you want these people to do better, you need to establish some law and order, because people are more likely to invest in an area when their stuff's not going to get stolen, when they're likely not to get killed checking in on their business, or all these other different various problems that are associated by letting criminals run rampant. And each and every one of these woke policies, let's be clear about that, have failed in the city of Chicago. They caused the crime rate to go up. We talked about how they hit over 800 murders. Chicago was already bad, but they got significantly worse post the Black Lives Matter riots, post Kimberly Foxx coming into office, post this we're not going to prosecute anyone for anything kind of policy, and this is likely to continuously contribute to those negative outcomes.
If you exist as a black person in this country or as a brown person in this country, you to some extent fear that interaction with the police.
So first of all, I hate this guy, Kobe Guillory, or whatever the hell his name is, the co-chair of the, let me read this correctly, Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Oppression, a guy wearing one of those Amazon $12 pro-Hamas scarves around his neck as he's talking this nonsense, saying, you know what, these kind of stops, they really hurt the black and brown community. I mean, not because of the behavior of the black and brown community, not because of the crime that's going on in these communities, but they hurt them because, they get stopped and then they're found to commit other crimes, and then the prosecutor has the audacity to prosecute them for those other crimes. I mean, it's really unfair when you commit a bunch of serious crimes, you have evidence in your car, and then you're pulled over for not even maintaining your vehicle properly, posing a safety risk to other drivers on the road, and then you get arrested, and then they ask you to search the vehicle, and you say yes, and then that evidence is used against you in a court of law. Absolutely shameful and disgusting. We need to let that evidence go so that the criminals can run free, because we're trying to save the community, because he's against racist and political oppression. Again, shut up, man. Just shut your face. Stop talking. Wrap that Hamastinian scarf around your mouth so I can at least have your voice muffled at this point in time. Go oppress yourself.
Because it could result in them taking your life.
And then he wraps it up by saying, oh, this could result in them taking your life. But remember, this isn't about the police killing you or anything like that. This is about stopping the police police from collecting evidence on criminals and that evidence being used to prosecute them. Now, I know the goal is to create a chilling effect to prevent traffic stops from occurring in the first place, because how dare you stop a criminal that attacks a police officer and then the police officer has to defend himself against said criminal. Listen to the pro-Hamas guy right here, the Alliance Against Political and Racist Oppression. Oh, what a great organization. He's the co-chair of that, like anybody's on the other side of that issue in reality. But yeah, it's absurd in every way.
Activists have been fighting for an end to what are referred to as pretextual traffic stops.
Don't roll the window up.
Their concerns heightened after a CPD tactical team killed Dexter Reed in March after he shot an officer.
What did I say earlier in this video? What did I say when the Dexter Reed case dropped earlier this year and I put a video out on it? They were going to use this case despite the fact that Reed fired at least 9 times at the police officers, thus justifying their lethal response against him in order to craft policy change in order to benefit the criminal. So they cite this case, no joke. They say, he got killed in this pretextual stop because he fired at the police officers. He fired 9 shots at them. He tried to kill them. And now what we have to do is make it impossible in that situation for you to prosecute these people, because people like Dexter Reed, who are willing to open fire on police officers despite being surrounded, only did that because he could have faced criminal charges by Kim Foxx, who, by the way, isn't charging people for anything anyway at this moment as the Cook County State Attorney, and that is honestly too sad, and that would have prevented the shooting. And honestly, we should just be fine, because we know for a fact that if we allow more illegal guns onto the streets in the city of Chicago, again, these are people who want to restrict legal guns, but more illegal guns in the hands of felons on the streets of the city of Chicago, will have less criminal shootings with the officer where the criminal ends up being killed, because, the officer being killed, I guess we're fine with that. I guess that's acceptable behavior. But Dexter Reed, the innocent angel, no way. He can't be killed. He was just trying to, shoot people. And I know his family says he was enjoying his car, riding around, having a good time, but he tried to shoot the officers. And this is the pretext that they're using. They drag out the Hamastinian scarf wearing loser to talk about racial oppression, and they cite Dexter Reed shooting at police officers on video as an example of the racism against Dexter Reed. Dexter Reed being the victim of the racism right there.
That traffic stop, the Civilian Office of Police Accountability says, was initiated because Reed wasn't wearing his seatbelt. A seatbelt violation would not be covered by Fox's policy.
So they finish up that portion of the segment by saying that seatbelt violations would not be covered by this particular policy. So they go to Dexter Reed. They say that this is one of the reasons why we need to have this policy in place, because he shot the cops. And for some reason that has to do with whether or not you use evidence from the vehicle in the case against him, which there is no case against him because they shot him back and then they killed him. But then they go on to add that the seatbelt violation would not be included in the protected policies. And this is progressive backwards think to a T. So the seatbelt is on you. You decide to do it and affects your own safety. And to be clear, you should wear a seatbelt. But the fact of the matter is, the taillights that are included affects other people. It causes a safety hazard for other drivers on the road. It is not just your choice, but that's considered not something worthy of a stop, and it just makes no sense until you realize that these people want to run your lives, but they also want to restrict law enforcement, but they also don't care about criminality against other people. But again, their nanny state tendencies mean that they want to protect you from yourself.
What she is saying in her policy is this: we don't care what traffic code you violated, and we don't care what police officers find after. I want to see more traffic stops in my ward. They work.
Now, of course, you see this woman right here say this is absolutely insane. She actually wants more traffic stops in her ward because they work. We talked about the downstream positive effects of this. It's actually pretty obvious that this has positive effects. The one example of a negative outcome was brought upon Dexter Reed by Dexter Reed, and it was related to a pretextual stop that had nothing to do with this new policy. It's not even covered, so they don't have any example of this being a thing that actually was horrible and evil, white, and racist, and that's really the absurdity of this whole situation.
The proposal is receiving swift pushback from some in city and state government. Illinois Controller Susana Mendoza tweeting, "The policy will help keep illegal guns in the hands of criminal offenders rather than getting them off the streets. Future victims deserve better. Looking forward to a new state's attorney who will follow and enforce the law."
So there you have Susan A. Mendoza shading Kimberly Foxx very well, saying that she's looking forward to a new state's attorney that will will enforce the law. And again, another contradiction with Democratic ideology is that they want to make guns illegal. It's not really a contradiction for you, for the citizens, so that they can trump up charges against you at any point that they want. But for the actual criminals, for the actual people committing the homicides with the firearms, they want to make it easier, and that's going to impact future victims. But spoiler alert, Kimberly Foxx doesn't care about future victims because she thinks the criminals are actually the real victims. They're just innocent Aladdins who are committing traffic violations and shooting you up to feed their starving family.
If this policy even makes it in place, I will change it on the first day.
Bob Fioretti is the Republican candidate running to become the new state's attorney. Kim Foxx isn't seeking re-election.
We do not need 2 defense attorneys in the courtroom.
So first of all, I am rooting for this individual for the state's attorney's office, and that has little to do with the fact that he has the evil orange man Donald Trump's hair, and that is the entirety of his platform. It also has to do with the fact that he doesn't like the idea of 2 defense attorneys in the courtroom advocating for the criminal, and I hope he wins. And wouldn't it be interesting in a situation where Kimberly Foxx is forced to step down due to political pressure, due to the fact that everybody hates her at Cook County, and this guy comes into office at that point in time, while Brandon Johnson, one of the wokest mayors ever, is in the city of Chicago's leadership position, which is the largest city in Cook County. So it would be an interesting contradiction, an interesting back and forth. I'm rooting for this guy, but I'm not all that optimistic, although I think Kimberly Foxx might have left enough of a bad taste in the residents of Cook County's mouth that he might have a chance.
Fioretti's Democratic opponent, Justice Eileen O'Neill Burke, declined to comment on the policy.
And of course, the Democratic opponent right there declined to talk about this, doesn't want to bring this up, doesn't want to take a stance because she's probably in favor of this. She's probably somehow woker than Kimberly Foxx, more ridiculous than Kimberly Foxx. She's probably going to figure out a way to give Jussie Smollett some kind of an award because Kimberly Foxx only stops short on letting him off incredibly easy. But you know what? These are just my thoughts related to this issue, and I want to know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. Should we disregard evidence collected during traffic stops of criminals who committed crimes for sure because it's evil, white, and racist? Or should we have some sensible policies? Or, plot twist, third option, do you not care about what goes on in Cook County or Chicago at all whatsoever and think that they should just be walled off and let them figure it out for themselves? All your thoughts down in the comments below. As usual, if you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about this absolute nonsense in Chicago. Till next time.